Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with us. My angle in moments. But first, missiles continuing to fly in the Middle East as face-to-face negotiations between Iran and some European officials started with no immediate signs of progress. Iran's top diplomat says that Tehran is willing to keep talking, but not to the United States. Israel launching a wave of attacks against military-industrial sites and Iran retaliating by striking Tel Aviv. And late today, President Trump warned Iran, you have 2 weeks. That's it.
Patriots, you better sit down for this one. What we saw tonight on the Ingraham Angle is nothing short of a wake-up call. Missiles are flying. Iran is provoking. And President Trump, our president, is the only one standing firm with a clear red line. 2 weeks. That's all they've got. Let me break this down. Real talk. Real fast, because the mainstream media sure won't. Face-to-face talks between Iran and some weak European suits? Totally useless. Iran flat out refuses to even speak to the United States. That's not diplomacy, that's arrogance.
The president knows what's at stake, which is why he's giving this timetable. Now, we don't want the U.S. involved in another endless war. Trump campaigned on that, and he hasn't strayed.
Do you want your legacy, Mr. President, to be that of a peacemaker? Do you worry that striking Iran would change that?
Always a peacemaker. That doesn't mean sometimes you need some toughness to make peace, but always a peacemaker.
There's only so far you can push a peacemaker, but President Trump will do what he has to do and do what he's always done. He'll try to strike a deal. He was pressed today on the quality of the intel he's gotten on how close Iran actually is to building nuclear weapons and whether he's done and about face on military interventionism.
20 years ago, you were skeptical of a Republican administration that attacked a Middle East country on the idea of questionable intelligence of weapons of mass destruction. How is this moment different with Iran?
Well, there were no weapons of mass destruction. I never thought there were. And that was somewhat pre-nuclear. You know, there was a nuclear age, but nothing like it is today. And it looked like I'm right about the material that they've gathered already. It's a tremendous amount of material. And I think within a matter of weeks, or certainly within a matter of months, they're going to be able to have a nuclear weapon. We can't let that happen.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
So what happens? Israel takes action, hits Iran's military facilities hard. And Iran? They strike Tel Aviv in return. Escalation is here. It's not on the horizon, it's now. And President Trump isn't playing games. You heard that. 2 weeks. President Trump laid it out plain. He doesn't want war. None of us do. But he's not going to sit back and let terrorists build nukes while we twiddle our thumbs like it's 2015. And don't give me this deep state baloney about intelligence being unclear. Trump's own intel director, Tulsi Gabbard, says Iran isn't ready. Trump says she's wrong. You know what? I trust a guy who stood up to China, crushed ISIS, and brokered Middle East peace deals. He's been right before, and he's right again. Aaron says it's all peaceful enrichment? Please. Less than 1% of their energy comes from nuclear power, and the rest is just sitting underground, heavily enriched. Let me translate. That ain't for lights and fridges, folks. That's weapons-grade prep.
Oh, ouch. And President Trump answered one of the most important questions that I think all of you want to know the answer to.
President, are you concerned that Iran or its proxies would wage terror attacks against American targets abroad if you order military action?
We're always concerned about that, and we have to take them out and be very strong. You're even in danger talking to me right now. Do you know that?
Once the United States gets involved, there is no turning back. Trump is wise to give this more time to play out. Here with me now is Behnam Ben Taleblu, Senior Fellow at the Foundation of the Defense for the Defense of Democracies. Behnam, it's good to see you. Is President Trump taking the right path here by giving Iran, in your estimation, it's essentially a deadline? It could be as long as 2 weeks, but he didn't say that it might not be shorter than 2 weeks.
Pleasure to be with you, Laura. I think it's the million-dollar question, and you're absolutely right to be asking it because Trump is giving time, but not necessarily to Iran. President Trump is giving time to the Israelis to continue to defang the Iranian ballistic missile threat. Iran is still home, even though lots of missiles have been intercepted and even though lots of missiles have been destroyed. Iran is still home to the biggest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East. So that is a critical mission that the Israelis are continuing to carry out, both against medium-range systems as well as against their launchers. The Israelis continue to go after a whole network of missile, military, and nuclear infrastructure, so continuing to impose costs on this regime, which increases actually President Trump's leverage in the short to medium term if he does give them this full 2 weeks.
Well, Iran's deputy foreign minister was asked today why his government had ramped up the production of enriched uranium. This was his response. Watch.
There is no ban on 60% enriched uranium, which are being used, in different places for peaceful purposes. But to use that as a pretext to use aggression against Iran, that is something that we resist.
Behnam, this is pretextual. The percent of uranium that they possess for peaceful purposes only, and America and the West is making a grave mistake in supporting these strikes.
Forgive me, Laura, but this is a gigantic joke. The Islamic Republic of Iran has no need for domestic uranium enrichment, not just talking about all of its energy and oil and gas wealth that I can use for this kind of electricity generation on the home front. But today, the Islamic Republic gets less than 1% or just over 1% of electricity from nuclear sources for its entire grid. Everything else is from sources that the Islamic Republic has domestically been producing. So all of the uranium that the Iranians are producing, large swaths of it are just sitting there in storage. That's why in Fordo, this 300 feet underground fortified military nuclear facility, all this uranium is just sitting there highly enriched. And just to really disprove the deputy foreign minister's point there, Iran is the only country in the world that does not have civil nuclear naval propulsion, so they don't have nuclear submarines, which take 60%, that is producing 60%, that doesn't have nuclear weapons already. So this should be a dead giveaway. And just for the audience to know as well, countries that are producing 60% are not 60% of the way there. Uranium enrichment is logarithmic, not linear. So 60% is actually more akin to 90+% of the way there.
All right, Behnam, thank you as always. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
Iran has no nuclear submarines, no peaceful nuclear navy. So why are they enriching to 60%? Because 60% is basically 90% of the way to a bomb. We're not stupid. We see what's happening. And don't forget, Trump isn't just giving Iran a deadline. He's giving Israel room to keep hammering those missile sites. That's leadership. That's strategy. That's putting America and our allies first. Look, patriots, this moment matters. It's not just about Iran. It's about standing up to evil, calling out lies, and making sure we never wake up to a mushroom cloud because we gave peace a chance with terrorists. Trump knows. What time it is, the left may be asleep, but we're wide awake. Stand with Israel. Stand with America. And if you're with us, hit that like button, subscribe to Republican Forum, and sound off in the comments. Do you think Trump should strike? If Iran crosses the line, this isn't politics. This is survival. God bless America.